This challenge is all about the money, okay? How to get free college for high income families at any school and for any student. Okay, we're going to move quickly. And so if you do not have somebody on my team helping you out that you're texting back and forth with, then go to freecollegechallenge.com/support. Fill out a quick survey and we'll match you up with one of our team members to start texting you and letting you know all the links and resources and everything that we're sharing with you. We also have a college funding plan for everybody at the end that we're going to offer you for free. And you're going to definitely want this college funding plan that's going to help you tie a lot of this together. And if you want that plan, you're going to need your team member to help you get that information filled out and submitted so that we can get you that plan. So again, go to freecollegechallenge.com/support, fill out that quick survey, and be messaging back and forth with my team. If you make over 50,000 or around 50,000, that puts you in the top half of the country. Okay. Top half of the country. Okay. And if you are in the top 25%, you are making about 100,000, right at around 100,000, put you in that top 25%. Top 25% put you in 100,000, put you at top 25%. 178,000 put you in the top 10%. 261,000 put you in the top 5%, and 663 put you in the top 1. Who is this workshop for? This workshop is to show high-income families how to get free money for college. If you are making over 100,000 a year, we're going to call you high-income families. Number one is the tip of the iceberg, but it's also the first domino as well, which is all the free money secrets. Okay, free money secrets, how to maximize the free money through financial positioning. If you want free money, then you're in the right place. Okay. Number two, college loans. College loan discounts for high-income families. I know some of you may plan on paying cash for college. Some of you may have savings. I'm going to talk about why you might want to consider some of these loan strategies. Could save you a lot of money. And then the third strategy is how to pay for college that could get you that money back in retirement. So secrets one and two are going to show you how to get free college. Secret 3 is going to show you how to get what if you do have to pay for college. If you do have to pay for college, then we're going to show you how to get that money back. First things first, what are your 3 costs of college? Cost of attendance, okay, your financing costs, and your opportunity cost. I'm going to show you how to reduce all 3 of these costs. This applies to all of you. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care what schools your students want to go to, and I don't care how academically gifted your students are. This applies to all of you. We're going to start with reducing the cost of college because the cost of college has skyrocketed. I mentioned this earlier. Since 1978, the cost of college has gone up over 1,400%. It's going up over 8 times faster than wages. That's why you're all here. So I'm going to show you how to maximize the free money through financial positioning. Even if you think you make too much money to qualify for traditional financial aid, or you think your students are too young, or you already have high school students or even college students. Again, this is for any income, any student, any school. Okay. You don't want to spend countless hours searching for private scholarships. However, okay, maybe you do want some private scholarships, and I'll show you how to get some, our private scholarship database here in just a minute. But the secret, private scholarships make up a very little percentage of the free money, and it takes a lot of work. It can be like, searching for a needle in a haystack. Most of the free money comes from the schools, and I'm going to show you how to maximize the free money from the schools. Okay. And I'm going to also show you need-based financial aid and merit-based scholarships. And I'm going to focus specifically on how high-income families can get the free money from these schools. Now, there's two ways to get free money from the schools. two ways to get free money from the schools. The first is through what we call student positioning. That's where we go from gifted in other ways to exceptionally gifted. That's your test prep. That's your passion project. That's the AP classes that you take. That's the resume. That's your essay, admissions application. All of that falls into what we call student positioning. A lot of that comes down to the schools that you choose. Acceptance, all of it comes into student positioning. And that's where we get merit-based scholarships. Merit-based scholarships. However, there is another type of money that you could get. And that other type of money that you could get is called financial positioning. Okay. In financial positioning, we are going to lower what they call that SAI number so that we can maximize the free money through what we call financial positioning. And I am going to show you how to get that number to zero. Okay. I'm going to show you how to get that number to zero through financial positioning. My goal is to show you how to get your SAI number to zero and your EFC number as low as humanly possible. Why is that important? Because that's how you get the biggest discounts from these schools. Let's take a state school like UT Austin that's $28,000 a year. How would you like a $17,000 discount, making your out-of-pocket only $10,000? Or how about an out-of-state school like University of Oklahoma? How would you like to get a $20,000 discount off each year, which is $17,000? And here's the crazy thing. How would you like to go to a top-tier Ivy League school that's $85,000 a year for an $80,000 discount and pay less than it would cost to have your kids living at home? What is the student aid index and how is it calculated? Well, it's calculated when you complete the FAFSA and the CSS profile financial aid forms. Okay. So the FAFSA refers to it as the student aid index. They just changed it. The CSS profile, which is mostly your private schools, they still refer to it as the EFC number. So you might hear me kind of use the EFC number and the SAI number interchangeably because it's kind of confusing right now because they basically just changed it. Okay. Now, it's based on the income and the assets of the parents and the student. Now, this is when you say, oh, I'm out. I make too much money. Not going to qualify. That's not true. I'm going to show you. Okay. I'm going to show you. Now, this does not include consumer debt. What that means is that if you are buried in debt, it's not going to help you. It doesn't help you to have debt, basically, is what I'm saying. It's going to look at what they call the prior year from a tax return standpoint. So right now we are in 2025. All right. We are live in 2025. Okay. So in 2025, if you have a junior in high school right now that's going to be going into their senior year in the fall, it will be 2025 when they are a senior. And in the fall is when you're going to be typically filling out these financial aid forms. It's going to be looking at the 2024 tax returns. The 2024 tax returns, and your student is going to be going to school, to college in 2026. 2026. So it's looking at the 2024 tax returns for a 2026 college student. Now, the assets are going to be calculated on the day that you fill out the forms. Okay. And this formula is done every year. We're going to fill out the financial aid forms every year. And it could be lowered to increase your financial aid, and it can be as low as $0 through what we call financial positioning. That's our goal. We're going to get that number to zero. We're going to take this high SAI number. Now, if you are a high income family, like we already established, if you make over 100,000 a year, you're in the top 25% of the country, right? If you're in the top 25% of the country, then you're a high income earner. And my guess is your SAI number would be too high to give you financial aid at most schools. Maybe not the top tier schools, but most of them. So we want to drive that number down to zero, or as close to zero as humanly possible. Okay. So first of all, how do we do that? Well, let's talk about what is an asset. Your savings accounts, your college savings accounts. This is why, if you've watched one of my Facebook ads or any of my videos, I say don't use 529 accounts to save for college. Why? Because it hurts your SAI and EFC numbers. Okay? It hurts your number. Your cash, your checking, your savings, your CDs, your mutual funds, your brokerage accounts, all of that hurts your SAI number. Okay? Trusts, business assets also hurt. Basically, anything that is not in a retirement account, even if it's for retirement. Some of you say, well, my brokerage account is what I was using for retirement. My brokerage account is not for college. My brokerage account is for retirement. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. As far as the calculations go, you have to include all of these on the financial aid forms. Now, real estate equity gets a little tricky. Real estate equity on the FAFSA, it only looks at investment properties. On the CSS profile, it looks at investment properties and your personal residence. Okay. So if you have tons of equity in your house, that's going to be better to go to a school that looks at a FAFSA, and less beneficial if you go to a school that looks at the CSS profile. What is not an asset? IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, 457s, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs, KIOs, profit sharing. Those are not assets because those are retirement accounts. What's a Roth IRA, Roth 401k, Roth 403b, Roth SEP IRA? These are not going to hurt you. If you have one of these, you're okay. Cash value life insurance, annuities, those are considered in the same category as retirement accounts. Anything in a retirement account, even if it's for college. So let's say you chose to use a Roth IRA or a life insurance plan to save for college. Even though it's earmarked for college, it doesn't hurt you. Does that make sense? Now, how to calculate this need-based financial aid formula. How do these schools look at this? Okay. Now, what they do is they take the cost of attendance, subtract it from your family's SAI number. Let me be very clear. The reason why they changed it from the expected family contribution number to the student aid index is because everyone thought that that EFC number was how much they had to pay for college. It's not how much you have to pay for college. Your student aid index is not how much you have to pay for college. You take the cost of attendance and subtract it from that number, and then that gives you what you're eligible for, your aid eligibility. Your aid eligibility. Okay? Every school then covers a different percentage of your need. Okay, let's take a look at an example. If the school is $90,000 and your SAI number is 30,000, then you have a need. You have a need or a financial aid eligibility of 60,000. And then the school is going to cover anywhere from maybe 25% to 95% of that. So you might get a $15,000 discount to maybe a $57,000 discount, depending on the school. Okay. Now, what if the school is only 25,000? What if you're looking at a state school? You don't have a financial aid eligibility. It doesn't matter what percentage they cover. You do not have a financial aid eligibility. In this report, you can see the aid provided for Harvard is 100%, but they give you 95% of that in what we call free money. That's what we're looking for. The first thing we need to do is sit down and calculate your SAI number using our SAI calculator and then see how much lower we can get it. Is it 29,000 with a 44,000 EFC number? Well, if that's the case, then check this out. You're not going to get anything from a state school. You're not going to get a whole heck of a lot from an out-of-state school. Maybe a little bit more from your top-tier Ivy League schools, but cost of college is still going to be really high. Okay? So, how to increase need-based financial aid through financial positioning. Our goal, again, is to drive this number down to zero. Drive that number down to zero. How do we do that? Okay? How do we do that? Well, first, let me explain why that's so important. If we can, now maybe we still have a little equity in our house. Okay? Maybe we still have a little equity in our house. But here's the deal. If we can get that number to zero, we could save 17,000 on a state school, 20,000 on an out-of-state school, and 80,000 on an out-of-state school, like we looked at earlier. Or I mean, a private school, Ivy League type school. Okay? So two ways to do that. Reposition your assets and lower your income. Now, lowering your income is not what you think. I'm going to explain that in a minute. And you can lower your SAI number and your EFC number to zero. So let's first talk about how do I reposition my assets? How do I reposition my assets? Well, remember, all of these over here on the left, okay? All of these over here on the left are the assets that hurt your SAI number. So what do? We move them to assets that don't hurt your SAI number. IRAs, 401ks, Roth IRAs, life insurance, pay off debt. So if you have a child, for example, with $10,000 in their savings account, or $5,000 in their savings account, and we want to move it into a Roth IRA, that would reposition those assets. If you want to max out your IRAs, put some money into your IRAs, or your Roth IRAs, or your life insurance, or you could pay off debt. Okay? That's how we reposition assets. Now, some of these accounts have an annual limit. If you've got $1 million over here, if we've got $1 million over here, we may need to move this money into something like life insurance. Now, I know that's going to be very controversial because if you're like me, you've heard, oh, life insurance is bad. I remember I used to tell my clients, insurance is insurance, investments are investments, and all these high fees. But what if there's a way to just shelter or reposition that money while your kids are in school? Okay, we're going to go over that in more detail later. I'll show you some examples, but you could literally move all the money over if we wanted to, because some of these are limits, but we could max these out, right? Max out these, pay off this. All right, we could do a lot of things to move that money over. Now, I know there's going to be like a million questions about, well, what if my 529 account is going to have some penalties? It's going to have a penalty on the gains. It's going to have a penalty on the gains. It's going to be a 10% penalty on the gains. And then you're going to have to pay taxes on the gains. But I'm going to show you how to solve that problem in just a minute. But you have to figure out how much is that going to save you off the cost of college. So yes, that might hurt. Okay, if you have to move money out of a brokerage account, you might have to pay a capital gains tax. But how much is it going to mean that you're going to save in college savings? Now, I want to talk about, because we know that there's limits. We know there's limits we can put into IRAs. We know there's limits we can put into Roth IRAs. We know there's limits on a lot of this, But really, the life insurance is the one where we can actually, the life insurance is actually the one where we can move the most money. I want to explain a little bit about life insurance as it's pertaining to sheltering these assets or repositioning these assets. So let's just say that we're talking about $500,000 of life insurance. There's the minimum that you can pay for that life insurance, and then there's the maximum. Has anyone ever heard of the maximum you can pay for life insurance? I mean, have you ever called up your State Farm agent and said, hey, what's the maximum I can pay for my car insurance? I'm wanting to pay the maximum for my car insurance. Not something that we usually think about, is it? Okay. But the insurance company determines the minimum. The government determines the maximum. Why is that? Why does the government care how much we pay for this $500,000 of insurance? Well, the reason is because in the 80s, they came out with what they call qualified plans. IRAs, 401ks, SEP IRAs, 403bs. These are all called qualified plans, where basically the money goes into these plans pre-taxed, but they get taxed, or not pre-taxed, I'm sorry, without taxed, okay? Okay, yeah, before you pay your taxes, before you pay your income tax, yeah, pre-tax. And then you pay your taxes when you take the money out. You pay the taxes later. You are postponing your taxes. That means the government gets to choose how much of your money they want in the future. Did you know every one of you who put money into a 401k or an IRA partnered with the government? They get to decide how much of your money they want in the future. If they want to raise taxes, they can raise taxes and they can take more of your money. Okay, that's the challenge. When you put money into the life insurance, it grows tax-free. They call it the rich person's Roth IRA because it grows tax-free. But if you cross this line, it's called a modified endowment contract, and the gains are taxed as ordinary income. Let me say that again. The gains are taxed as ordinary income instead of having it grow tax-free. So the idea is to stay underneath that line. And so instead of paying $500 for that life insurance, we might want to pay $10,000. Now, why would we want to pay $10,000 for something that we could get for $500? Well, because if we paid $500, we're going to get term insurance. We're going to get just the death benefit. That's all we get. But if we pay more, we're going to get tax-deferred growth on the money, tax-free access to the money. Does that sound like a 529 account? Does that sound like a Roth IRA? Right? A great rate of return. I'm going to show you today how you can get a 6 to 8% return with no stock market losses. High contributions. We don't have that limit. We don't have that limit of $7,000 into a Roth IRA. Additional benefits like things like long-term care coverage and things that come along with the insurance. You can use the money as collateral to borrow against it. We talked about that. We're going to go into that in more detail. It's safe from lawsuits, creditors, and bankruptcies in most states. It's guaranteed to never lose if you get the right kind. There is life insurance called variable universal life insurance where the money is in the stock market and that money can lose. But the type we are talking about is guaranteed to never lose. You're guaranteed to be able to get a loan and you don't have to make loan payments on the loans from life insurance companies. So I can use the money that I have saved. I can use the money that I have saved to borrow money from the insurance company using my money as collateral. So I can use my money as collateral to borrow money from the insurance company without making a payment on that loan. And I have access to my money and I've got, I can deduct the money in some scenarios, but not in your typical scenario. So if you pay the least amount, you're just going to get term and the death benefit. But if I pay the most, and I'm not going to be able to get deductible contributions on this, but if I pay the maximum, I'm going to get the maximum benefits. Here's the problem. Most people buy life insurance like this, and they buy just enough to be able to tell you about all these benefits. So maybe you guys already have one of these insurance policies, but you're not getting as many benefits as you're thinking you should be getting and that I'm talking about. You're like, wait a minute, this guy's talking about all these benefits that I've never seen, because most people are paying mostly for insurance, and they're getting a little bit of money here. So like maybe for every $1,000 you spend, you get $100 going towards some of these benefits, but you're missing out on all these other benefits. Now check this out. This is what we call at the very top. This is what we call a maximum efficient contract. A maximum efficient contract. That's maximized. That's like having an apartment building with full occupancy. That's like having an apartment building with full occupancy. However, okay, so what that means is that let's say that I have $100,000, or no, let me rephrase that. Let's say I've got $1 million. Let's say that I've got $1 million that I want to reposition. I want to reposition $1 million from my SAI calculation. I'm going to need to spread that $1 million out over 5 years. If you have $100,000, same thing. In order to stay as a maximum efficient contract, you have to spread the money out over 5 years. If I want to take $1 million or $100,000 and drop it into the life insurance in one shot, it's going to be called a modified endowment contract, and it's going to be called a MEC. And what I lose is I still get tax deferred growth, but I'm going to lose the tax-free access to the money. I'm going to lose the tax-free access to the money. But it's going to shelter that money. So reposition that money. Let me show you. So here's an example of a MEC. This is a MEC. We're not going to get tax-free access to the money, but check this out. If I did $100,000 one time, $100,000 one time, or $1 million one time, I'm going to get access. I'm going to get access guaranteed to at least my money back in pretty much the 4 years, a little bit less than the 4th year, but pretty much the 4 years, guaranteed. Now, if things go according to plan, I'm going to get a little bit of growth on my money. And yes, that $8,000 would be taxed as ordinary income. That $8,000 would be taxed as ordinary income because this is a MEC. But then I could move the money out into a maximum efficient contract after my kids are done with college and I no longer need this MEC. So I'm not going to let this keep growing forever. I'm going to move it from here into a non-MEC, a maximum efficient contract. But this is a way for me to reposition those assets. Okay, so let's say that I reposition all of my assets. Who did I say that this workshop was for? This challenge. This challenge is for free money. It's a free money challenge for high income families. Okay, high income families. So if we repositioned all of our assets, we still have an income. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a quick question. Put in the chat on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you understand tax strategies? And I'll explain why I'm asking in just a sec, but how well do you understand tax strategies? Go ahead and put that in the chat. The top 1%, people making in that 663,000 range, okay? The top 1% pays 40% of all the taxes, okay? The top 1% pays 40% of all the taxes. The top 5%, which includes the top 1%, okay? This is where it gets a little confusing. The top 5%, which includes the top 1%, pays 61% of all the taxes. The top 10%, which includes the top 5 and the top 1, you catching on, okay? Pays 72 almost. 72% of all the taxes are paid by, okay, paid by the top 10%. The top 25%, which is most of you on this workshop, okay, on this challenge. Most of you on this challenge are making over 100,000 a year, right? So all of you are paying 87% of all the taxes. Your demographic, right? You're paying 87% of all the taxes. And if you're making over 50,000 a year, okay, then everyone making over 50,000 a year pays 97% of all the taxes. 3% of the taxes are paid by the bottom 50%. Okay. Now, who's also getting all the financial aid? Who's getting all the financial aid? The bottom 50. Now, here's the question, and I want you to put this in the chat. Here's the question. What percentage do the millionaires and the billionaires pay? The top 0.001%. What percentage of taxes do they pay? How is it that this group up here, pays taxes down here? Okay. Now, ask yourself this. What are they doing? Okay, what are they doing? Here was an article that came out a while back. The secret IRS files. This never before seen record reveals how the wealthiest avoid income tax. Okay. Check this out. Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, Michael Bloomberg, Elon Musk paying 10.1%. If we look at the wealth growth and the total taxes paid, 0.1, 0.9, 1.3, 3.2. Okay. Do the wealthy play by a different set of rules? Here's the deal. They do not have a different tax code than you do. Those with a high financial IQ have lower tax rates because they're rewarded for doing what the government needs to move the economy. The tax code is designed to motivate what their agenda is. The tax code is written for you to take advantage of. Okay? Whether you believe it or not, that's the truth. You hear people like Grant Cardone, for example, big multi-billion-dollar real estate investor, talking on this little Instagram thing about how to not pay taxes when you make 200,000 a year. He explains it. Here's another video.
Are you paying no taxes on $12 million less a year? So it's not $12 million net, it's $12 million gross. So I would say probably 50% margin. So right around 5.5 to 6 million. What I'm doing is I am buying enough real estate to create enough losses on tax returns to offset a good amount of the business income that I'm making.
Okay. How does somebody making $6 million take, after business expenses? How does somebody making $6 million not pay any taxes? Now, are you okay if I show you how to pay $0 in taxes in addition to college savings and paying zero for college? I need you to write this down if you're taking notes. I need you to write this down. Tax savings equals college savings. Okay? Tax savings equals college savings. The way that you get your SAI and EFC number to zero is through asset repositioning and tax savings. Okay, that's how you do it. And that's why you do it. This is why you do it. Now, let me explain. Okay, I am not, oh, here's my disclaimer. I am not a CPA. I'm not giving tax advice. Please consult with your tax professional. If you don't have one, we have one if you want to ask our tax professional some of these questions, okay? All right, now, let's talk about lowering your income. You can put money into an IRA or a 401k, right? You put money into an IRA or a 401k, does that lower your income, yes or no? If I max out my IRA or my 401k, does that lower my income? Yes. Okay. How about starting a business? That can definitely lower your income. How about bonus depreciation? Yes. How about charitable contributions, mortgage interest deduction, HSA contributions, additional deductions? Basically, you need a good CPA, but I'm going to show you some ideas on a couple of these. Okay. I'm going to talk about starting a business, and I'm going to talk about bonus depreciation using real estate. First, I want to talk about starting a business. You can add your kids to payroll. Now, you might be saying, I don't have a business. I don't know how to start a business. We can help you with that as well. You want help starting a business? We've got ideas for you. We'll help you start a business. And then you can add your kids to your payroll. You can write off a portion of your home, more than you would think, actually. In fact, you can lease one of the rooms in your house to your business. How about your vehicle? Okay. You could actually do what they call bonus depreciation, where you write off the entire cost of the vehicle. Okay. There's certain rules. It has to weigh over 6,000 pounds and all that other kind of stuff, right? You could write off your insurance costs. You can actually, oh, I forgot this one over here. You can actually lease your house to your business for meetings in addition to your office. So there's a difference between your office and actually leasing your house to your business for office meetings or business retreats. Okay. Now, your business could also go on a retreat, okay, to Destin, Florida, or wherever else you like to visit. Okay. And you can write that off as a business retreat. Also, whatever cost it costs you to start your business, you can write that off, and so much more. Now, again, we have some ideas for you to kind of help you with this, but this is one way to lower your income. But I want to dive into something that's even more unique. I want to talk about bonus depreciation using real estate. Now, do you currently own real estate as an investment? I'm just curious how many real estate investors we have on this call. Just say yes or no if you currently own real estate as an investment. Have you ever considered owning real estate? Have you ever considered, but maybe just didn't know how? I know for me, put this in the chat. Say yes if you've ever considered owning real estate, but just didn't know how to do it, or were worried about the risks and all that kind of stuff. I know I've always wanted to invest in real estate. My dad retired at 57 with all of his money in real estate because my dad was an accountant for a billionaire real estate investor. And my dad invested in all these apartment complexes. But you have to have the right connections to invest in an apartment building. And if you go and buy just a regular rental property, right now, with the cost of the mortgage on that rental property, you might be lucky to make, $100 to a couple $100 a month in profit on that rental property. And then you got all your eggs in one basket and all that kind of stuff, right? Has anyone ever felt like me, just wanting to get into real estate, but not really knowing how and not really having enough money to be able to get into real estate? Here's why this is applicable to saving for college and reducing your taxes. There's this word called depreciation. Okay. When you buy a piece of real estate, by default, that residential piece of real estate is going to be depreciated over 27 and a half years. What that means is that you get to deduct the cost of the real estate over 27 and a half years off your taxes. Okay. Not going to help you if your kids are going to school next year, right? Okay. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There's this thing called cost segregation. Cost segregation is where you take the house or whatever it is, like let's just use this example over here. You take this house and you reduce the land, you take out the land because that cannot be depreciated. You cannot depreciate the land. And then you take whatever's left that is normally depreciated over 27 and a half years, which is roughly 45,000 a year, roughly. And then what you do is you do a cost segregation study, and it speeds this up. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, we can take some personal property. We can take some personal property and depreciate that over 5 to 7 years, and some land improvements and depreciate that over 15 years. And we can start to speed up the depreciation. Okay. We can start to speed up the depreciation. Here's another example of this cost segregation. Over here on the left, we have structural components that you cannot segregate, that are not included in a cost segregation study. And then we have over here on the right, we have these non-structural components. Okay, like the light fixtures, the furniture, the custom cabinetry, the appliances, the carpeting and the landscaping. All of this can be depreciated in 1 year through what we call bonus depreciation that is currently at 40%, but Trump has said that he's going to bring it back to 100%. So any day now, we're waiting for Trump to say that bonus depreciation is 100% and it's going to be permanent. That is the word on the street. Not to get political, that's just what they're saying. Okay. There is a short-term rental loophole that allows you to depreciate all of that cost segregation in 1 year. Okay. All of that cost segregation in 1 year. That's about 25 to 35% of the purchase price. 25 to 35% of the purchase price. Now, for those of you who don't think you have enough money to do this, I'm going to show you how this applies to everyone in just a minute. Okay. Now, let me give you an example. Okay. Oh, first of all, your CPAs are going to, some of your CPAs are not going to understand this short-term rental loophole. They think you have to be a real estate professional in order for this to apply. There is a loophole with short-term rentals that you do not have to be a real estate professional. And I'm not going to get into all of the details of real estate investing on this particular workshop, but I want you to just write this down. I want you to write down this code section 49 dash whatever. I want you to write that whole thing down. I want you to take a picture. You can take a screenshot. This is the detailed tax code that explains what I'm explaining. And it was originally designed for hotels and motels back in 1986 during Ronald Reagan. When he initially came out with this, it was designed, this ability to do this bonus depreciation in 1 year, or this the cost segregation study. The cost segregation was designed originally for hotels and motels. But guess what? We didn't have Airbnb and VRBO back in 1986, did we? Or 1983, it was one of those years. Okay. So there's this loophole where Airbnb and VRBO counts as a hotel and a motel that allows you to write this whole thing off in one shot. So for example, let's say that you put 10% down and you can do 10% on short-term rentals because they're treated as a business. Okay. So that's 100,000 down on $1 million property, 100,000 down. And that is going to give you around that 25 to 35 to be conservative. Let's just say 20 to 25%. The land is the biggest variable. Okay. The land is the biggest variable. That means that by you putting $100,000 down or 200,000, depending on the financing that you want to do, but it is possible to do a 10% down. That means that by putting $100,000 down on $1 million property, you can reduce your taxable income by $200,000 to $250,000. Does that make sense? Now, I'm sure it doesn't. I'm sure you have a million questions. Again, I'm not trying to dive into the details of real estate investing. I'll show you how you can dive in and geek out on this if you want to geek out on this. We're also going to go over this in more detail tomorrow. But do you see how anyone with any income, I don't care. The reason why the guy making $6 million a year can pay $0 in taxes is because of this. If you make $100,000 a year, could you still not put $20,000 down on a $200,000 piece of property? I'll show you a case study where I go over that in a little bit. Well, I'll show you another case study on that. But do you see how this helps you to reduce your income, wiping away your income, causing your income to be zero, taxes to be zero, and the SAI number is zero, giving you the maximum financial aid. Now, if you want to learn about short-term rentals, because that's a whole nother ball game, I have done a lot of research on this, and I am very confident, and if you have other resources, let me know, but I'm very confident that the leader in this space is a company called Vodacy. Sean Moore has been doing short-term rentals for over 20 years. And they have a phenomenal program to teach you all the ins and outs, including all the taxes and everything when it comes to short-term rentals. Now, he has an amazing course that I've loved. It's been so enlightening to see how you can get into real estate when you didn't really think you could before. Like, I know for me, like I said, for me, I've always wanted to get into real estate, but I didn't have a ton of money to invest in all these apartment complexes. And I didn't want to just go buy a long-term rental property. And so when I went through this course, when I went through this program, I was blown away of just how easy it is and how easy they make it. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in just a minute. But I want to show you an example from this course. Okay. This is a real world example from the course. And yes, I got permission from Sean to show you this. This is a house that Sean purchased that he uses as an example of not a home run. This was not a home run. Okay. He bought this property for $800,000. You could buy a property for $400,000 or $8 million. It doesn't matter. I'm just giving you as an example. Now, he put $160,000 down. You could do 10% down. Okay. You could do 10% down. He did 160. He also paid $26,000 in closing costs and inspections. And then he added $26,000 in furnishings. Just a kind of example, just an example. You don't have to add furnishings. You could buy one already furnished, but his total capital outlay was $262,000. Now, for those of you who have college savings, would you rather put your money towards something like this or towards paying for college? Now, let me explain, okay? His debt, his loan is $49,000 a year because he financed $640,000 at 6.75. So this is not a 3% interest mortgage. This is a very high interest mortgage over 30 years. That's a $4,000 monthly payment. Total income in the first year is $130,000. Okay. $130,000. But how many of you don't want to be landlords? Nobody, anyone? No, I don't want to be a landlord either. Okay. I don't want to be a landlord. So he paid $26,000 a year to a management company to manage the property for him. Fixed expenses, including Facebook ads that he spent to advertise the property, in addition to VRBO and Airbnb. They actually teach you how to market it directly. Net income, 130,000 minus the mortgage, minus the management company, and minus the Facebook ads, just shy of $40 million a year. Okay. Just shy of $40 million a year. Or sorry, $40,000 a year. Okay. And then cash on cash return after the write-offs. Now, here's what I wanted to point out. Do you see this? Reduction in my taxes of $95,000. $95,000 that he reduced his taxes because of the cost segregation study that was a little right around 30%-ish. That means he was able to reduce his income by $244,000 that year.
With 100% bonus depreciation only helps you for that 1 year, not subsequent.
Okay, that 1 year. Okay, so let's talk about that because you have kids going to school for 4 years, maybe some of you longer, right? Okay, so here's what you do. Year one, they put in 200 and this is just an example of doing the exact same property every year. Every year the property would be different, right? But yes, they're actually buying a property every year. Now he talks about lifestyle assets and owning lifestyle assets and why you would want to pick 5 properties around the country that you like to go and visit. Because when you're not renting them out, you can go visit these properties. You can enjoy these properties. In the first year, they put $262,000 down. In the second year, you could take the income from the first year plus the tax savings. Okay. The income plus the tax savings. And in the second year, put down $127,000. And then you could take the income plus the tax savings, put it towards the third year, so on and so forth, each year to the point where your out of pocket is $480,000. Cash flow during that time was a total of $745,000, but your passive cash flow moving forward would be $259,000. Now, what did we not include in these numbers? What did we not include? What does Sean Moore from Vodacy not understand about your situation that's on this workshop right now? What could you save? You might be able to save $20,000 a year off college. What if you were able to have a 0 SAI number and save an average of $20,000 a year off college, or maybe even $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 off of a private school? That means that you would only have to put in $400,000. Now, obviously, not everyone has $400,000 to put in over the next 5 years. So cut the numbers in half. Cut the numbers in half, or cut them into a fourth, whatever you want. But here's the deal. That's $259,000 of passive income by the time your kids graduate college. Out of investing $400,000. That's a $400,000 investment that's going to give you $259,000 of passive income. Have you ever heard of the 4% rule? The 4% rule is a retirement planning rule of thumb that dictates a retiree withdraw 4% of their retirement funds. I want to go into this 4% rule because this is going to tie into what we're going to talk about with the retirement scholarship strategy. But if we go into this 4% rule idea, then as you can see, most people save for retirement by putting money into the stock market. And maybe you're getting a 10% return. Maybe you're getting a 10% return. But when it comes time to retire, most people are going to move their money into something that's a little bit more conservative, maybe 5%. A little bit more conservative at maybe 5%. Maybe you're paying 1% in fees to your financial advisor. So that equals 4%. Okay. 4%. That's what you get to live on. Now, if you want to increase that just a little bit to keep up with inflation, that's fine. But if you make 5%, then you spend it. You make 5%, then you spend it. You make 5%, then you spend it. If you're taking out more than 4%, it's going to eventually start going down, and you might run out of money before you die. So the goal is to try to live on as close to 4% as possible. That means that if you have $1 million saved in your retirement, 1 million saved in your retirement, that would pay you 40,000 in retirement. So 40,000 a year off of your $1 million saved. That's not a lot of money to live on in retirement off of $1 million. $259,000 of annual income would require $6,475,550 based on the 4% rule. In addition to saving money on college, this is how we zero out our income, zero out our taxes, and save money on college by maximizing the free money. I said in the very, very beginning that I left the IT industry to get into the financial industry to try to figure out how I was going to help my kids pay for college. What I learned and what I taught was the 4% rule. I used to manage money. I used to be a fiduciary, managing assets under management, telling people, put all your money in the stock market and try to live on the interest in retirement. That's the standard recommendation. And then I watched what my dad did with real estate. My dad retired at 57 with enough real estate income to retire at 57. And he had $50,000 in his 401k. My dad never made more than $60,000 a year, but he was able to retire at 57 because of real estate investing. I think everyone should consider real estate investing. And if you had considered it in the past, you really should consider it now, because it's going to help you to reduce the cost of college. And for those of you who have younger kids, you can do this cost segregation study and bonus depreciation later when you need it in the year that you're filling out the FAFSA. Let me say that again. If you have younger students, you can start investing in real estate now, save that cost segregation study for later, and do the bonus depreciation later when you need it for the FAFSA. Okay? I want to walk through this case study as well for those of you who don't think that this is applicable to you. This is a school teacher. Okay? A school teacher making a school teacher salary, and his wife is a homemaker that doesn't have an income. Him and his wife purchased a $290,000 house with 10% down. They actually took the equity out of their house. Now, there was a question earlier about what to do with all the equity in your house. If you have equity in your house, let's take it out and invest it. Okay. He took $29,000 out of the equity in his house and put a down payment of 10% down payment. That's an $87,000 tax deduction at 30%. So for those of you who make less than $100,000 a year and you have a little equity in your house, you could still implement these strategies. This house is now paying this family $12,000 a year. $12,000 a year. Now, they did a lot of sweat equity in this property. They did it and they fixed it up and made it really nice. And so, yeah, it took a little effort. But hey, you guys are telling your kids to go get good grades and to get a better test score so they can get free money. You're making your kids try to get all this scholarship money. So yeah, does it take a little bit of effort to learn how to be a real estate investor? Does it take a little effort to go pick out a place that you would like to go visit and travel to every year? Yeah, it takes a little bit of effort, but if it means saving a ton of money off college, that could be huge, right? Okay. Now, if you make $100,000 a year and you reposition all of your assets, $100,000 a year and you reposition all of your assets, and maybe you have $100,000 of equity, that's going to be what your SAI number looks like. Obviously, everybody's is totally different. There's a million other factors. There's dozens of factors that factor into your SAI number. We can help you calculate this number, but I'm just giving you an example. Just giving you an example. $12,000 on the SAI, $16,000 on the EFC. That's going to give you a little bit of a savings on a state school, but you're still looking at $20,000 a year on a state school. A little bit of savings on an out-of-state school, but you're still looking at 24, almost 25. And you're going to be getting a nice little discount off of a top-tier private school, but that's, just on a top-tier private school. Let's say you have $100,000 and $100,000 in assets and $100,000 in equity. Again, your number is going to be high. You're not going to get much in the way of savings at a state school. About double that at an out-of-state school. Nice little discount on an Ivy League school. Okay. If you make $200,000 a year, even if you repositioned all your assets and you still have a decent chunk of equity, then your SAI number is going to be too high for most schools. You are not going to get any assistance at the local state schools or the out-of-state schools. The only free money that you're going to get is a little bit of money from an Ivy League school. Or not even necessarily an Ivy League school. There are a lot of top-tier private schools that are not Ivy League schools that give you a lot of, financial aid, but you still are not going to be able to get money from a lot of these other schools. Okay. Now, what if we could zero out our income, zero out our assets, and still had $100,000 of equity? Well, because of the $100,000 of equity, you can see that our EFC number is going to be a little bit higher, but we're still going to be able to get a ton of free money. Okay. A ton of free money. Now, here's the challenge. That's what we're here for, right? The challenge is to get free money for high-income families at schools, at any school, and for any student. We're on the right track. We're just getting started. That was just secret number one. Don't include retirement accounts as an asset. The way that they word it on the FAFSA is, what is the net worth of your parents' assets or of your parents' investments? That's very misleading. It's very easy to put down retirement accounts. Don't put down retirement accounts as an asset on the FAFSA or the CSS profile. Also, you own the 529 money and your student is the beneficiary. It's not their money. If you include the 529 money under the student's name, huge mistake. Huge mistake. Now, remember, you guys were asking me about what to do with this 529 money. Remember, there's a penalty on the gains, just the gains, and then the gains are going to be added to your income for income tax purposes. But guess what? I just showed you how to not pay any taxes. So now you can move your 529 money and implement these retirement strategies and not have to pay taxes on the 529 money. There you go. All right. Report primary residence equity on the FAFSA. Do not report primary equity residence on the FAFSA. And overvaluing the real estate equity. Now, I want to talk about this for a minute because I just showed you how to take some of your money and put it into real estate. So if I take $100,000 out of the equity in my house, or $100,000 out of my brokerage account, or $100,000 out of my 529 account, and I put it towards real estate, aren't I just shifting one asset to another asset? Yes and no. This is where it gets very gray. There's no real way to determine what the value is of the real estate. The schools don't require you to go get an appraisal. The schools don't require you to use Zillow or your property taxes. They just kind of go based on some rough numbers that are lower than you would think. So if you put $100,000 into $1 million property, you could pretty easily consider it a $900,000 property. So it's a little bit of a gray area. We can coach you on that, and we can help you, through this process, but just to kind of keep that in mind. Secret number 2, college loan secrets. Let's go ahead and dive in. Here's the secret. Loan interest rates are not the most important consideration. Now you're like, wait a minute, you just barely told me that I can go out and get better rates on my private loans. Okay. Yes, it's true, but that's not the only thing that you should be considering. Using college loans strategically could save you more money than even what we just learned about in secret number 1. I know, sounds crazy, hard to believe, but how can loans save you more money than we just learned about in secret number 1? I'll explain. But I'm going to talk about why you shouldn't use your 529 money, your savings, your retirement accounts, or your whole life insurance, or your cash flow to pay for college. I'm going to talk about why you should consider government loans. I know. Now, I want to ask you a question. Who makes the most money? The company selling the cars or the company financing the car loans? Who makes the most money? How would you like to own the contract that financed everyone's college education? In 2009, the government decided to standardize all of the loans by taking them over so that they were all one interest rate across the board. So instead of being based on your credit or based on your income, everybody pays the same interest rate on a government loan. And they standardized all the loans. Well, they literally took over the college loans. If you go back to 2012, the student loan interest made up over 36% of the total federal government's assets. Since 2019, it now makes up over half. Since 2019, it now makes up over half of the federal government's total financial assets are in student loan interest, coming from student loan interest. That's how much money there is to be made in financing everybody's college education. Think about that for a minute. They let the kids borrow a very small amount. They let the kids borrow $5,500 for the freshman year, $6,500 for the sophomore year, $7,500 for the junior year, $7,500 for the senior year. That's $27,000 total over 4 years. That's it. That's it. $27,000 over 4 years. That's all you can borrow. Now, if you're going if it takes you 5 or 6 years, you could borrow more. But that's it for the undergrad. The rest is on the parents. But the parents can borrow the difference from the government in what we call federal loans. Even if you make too much money to qualify for financial aid on the FAFSA, which of course you're not going to because you're going to implement Secret 1, right? But even if you don't make any money at all, yes, that's right. So even if you wipe away your income and you pay 0 taxes and you show 0 income, the government will still loan you the money. It's the craziest thing. There's no income verification. Okay. They'll still loan you the money. But you do have to fill out the FAFSA. And of course, you're going to want to fill out the FAFSA anyway, because you're going to get a lot of financial aid. Okay. The big secret. What is the big secret? Income-driven repayment plans. That's the big secret. Loan payments are a percentage of the income of the parent, not parents, that takes out the loans. Okay. Take out the loans on the parent that makes the lowest income. But guess what? You just learned how to pay 0 income as a family anyway. So as a family, you're going to pay 0 income anyway, right? So you're going to pay 0 in loan payments. It's not about the interest rates. You can look this up at the studentaid.gov website. Go to studentaid.gov website, type in income-driven repayment plans, and read all about it. Now, listen to what it says, okay? If your income is low enough, your payment could be as low as $0 per month. There's a bunch of different plans. I'm not going to go into the details of those. And any remaining balance is forgiven at the end. This is the challenge, right? How to get free college for a high-income family at any school for any student. This is where any school and any student comes in, right? Any school, any student. I can borrow money to go to an Ivy League school at $100,000 a year. I can borrow money to go to a state school, a local state school. Sometimes I can even go out of state out of the country, overseas. Some overseas schools, if they participate in the FAFSA, would also qualify. Okay. And if you have a zero income, or if one of the spouses has a zero income, maybe one of you works, maybe the other one doesn't work, or maybe one has a really low income, you could take out the loans on that person and through these income-driven payment plans, pay zero income. Now, here's the big caution and disclaimers. You're dealing with the federal government. These programs could change and probably will tomorrow. That's why I didn't go into the details of the programs. I'm not going into the details of the programs because they could change tomorrow. Now, we have a certified student loan specialist that joins every Tuesday to answer your questions about the latest update on student loans. So if you're wanting to know what's going on with the current student loans, we'll keep you updated every week inside of our private client group. Okay. And our loan specialist can also help figure out which payment plan is best for you. Okay. Consult with a certified student loan professional. Again, you have access to our certified student loan professional every Tuesday. And plan for the worst, hope for the best. I would not put all my eggs in this basket. You should know about it. You should know about it. And if it were me, I would take out the government loans and see what they do. What if they get rid of these plans completely, but they decide to come out with a 1% loan consolidation program? Even better, right? The college funding secrets, which is using our retirement scholarship strategy. Now, this retirement scholarship strategy is my favorite topic. I wrote this book several years ago. There was an Amazon bestseller talking about the best way to save and pay for college. And I'm going to dive into this strategy. I love this strategy because it's the biggest savings of all. It saves hundreds of thousands of dollars off the opportunity cost, which is that last calculation that we talked about. Works for any school, public, private, community colleges, trade schools, overseas schools. Maybe your student doesn't even want to go to school and they want to start their own business. This literally works for any education. Any student, exceptionally gifted academically or gifted in other ways, doesn't require scholarships or financial aid, works for younger students or students already in high school or college, and can be used to pay for college or pay back college loans. Here's the key. I talked about this earlier, but how you pay for college is 10 times more important than how much you pay. Okay. How you pay for college is 10 times more important than how much you pay. Okay. So everyone finances college. Everyone finances college. You either pay interest on loans or you give up the interest you could have earned by paying cash. There is the cost of college and there is the opportunity cost of paying for college. Now, the problem with traditional college savings plans, your kids may choose a non-qualified form of education. Maybe they decide to go into the trades and you can't use your 529 money to pay for the trades. Or maybe you have a financial emergency. Or better yet, maybe you learn about real estate investing and want to put a down payment on a piece of real estate. And now you got this penalty, right? Or it may hurt that SAI number that we talked about. We want that SAI number to be 0. But this may hurt your SAI number and you could get less free money for college. Or maybe you want to take advantage of the income-driven repayment plan. Maybe you don't want to pay cash for college using the 529 money. Maybe you want to borrow all of the money from the government and see if you qualify for one of these income-driven repayment plans. Okay. But here's the number one reason. The number one reason why you shouldn't use a 529 account to save and pay for college is because it interrupts the compounding interest. This is the old way. This is the old way of paying for college. You save and you spend. This is how I taught all of my clients. I taught all of my clients when I was just getting started in the financial industry before I learned what I know now. I told all my clients to save for college and then spend the money on college. Save for your first car, paid for your first car. Save for your retirement. Spend the money in retirement. Or try to live on the 4% rule in retirement. Remember we talked about that? Okay. All right. Now, why does this not work? It doesn't work because we're interrupting the compound interest. Compound interest works best over what? Who knows? Compound interest works best over what? Time. It's exactly right. Time. Compound interest works best over time. You guys are about ready to pay cash for college using your savings, interrupting time, right? Interrupting the compounding interest. The retirement scholarship strategy is how to send any student to any school of their choice and get money back in retirement without scholarships or financial aid. Now, I just showed you how to get a lot of financial aid, a lot of financial aid. But if you didn't like that, if you didn't like Secret One, if you didn't like scholarships, or if you can't get scholarships and you don't want to get financial aid, and if you don't want to do the real estate or start your own business or take out the government loans, then this strategy is for you. Okay. Now, even if you have a high school student or college student and no money saved, let's say that you have to pay $100,000 for your kid to go to college. Now, I know that it might be $25,000 a year or whatever the case may be. I'm just showing you, I'm just trying to teach a concept for just a minute. Let's say that we're going to have to pay $100,000 for our kid to go to college. And let's say that that money was earning 6% or could earn 6% interest. If I look at that just over a 5-year window, that's $34,000 of interest I could have earned in just those 5 years. But how old are you? How old are you? In your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s? Do you have another 20 years? If you have another 20 years, that money could have grown to $300,000. That's $230,000 of interest. Do you have another 30 years? If you've got another 30 years, that's over $500,000 of interest. Remember, compounding interest works best over time. Okay, let's go back to the 20 here for somebody who's in their 50s, let's say. Okay, now that is the opportunity cost. So let's say that we borrow the money. Well, we don't want to borrow the money because if I borrow $100,000 at 6% interest, look at all this interest I pay. Now, remember, I showed you that we pay down the interest. Remember, every year that we pay on these loans, the interest is getting smaller. Do you see this? The interest is getting smaller. The interest, as we make these loan payments, as we pay down these loans, the interest itself is getting smaller. But by the time it's all said and done, we've paid $71,000 of interest, right? That's what we want to avoid. But it's worse than that. It's worse than that. Because if we pay that interest to the government or to a private lender for those loans, that interest is not compounding. Just like if you pay taxes, if you pay 20 grand next year in taxes, that's 20 grand that is not earning interest for you. Okay. So what is this yellow? That is the opportunity cost, right? That's the opportunity cost of all the interest that we're paying. That's the opportunity cost. Now, we're talking about $159,000 to borrow $100,000. But guess what? It's worse. Okay? because we've got a $700 a month payment. So if I'm making a $700 a month payment, that's $700 a month that is not growing at 6% interest up here, right? If I have to make a loan payment, that's $700 that I am not saving for my retirement. $700 a month. So I've got an opportunity cost on my payments. Hopefully you're following me, because this opportunity cost can be very confusing, but I'm going to show you how it will save you a lot of money if you understand this. Okay. So let's add them all up. Let's add them all up. I've got the $100,000 that I borrowed. I've got the interest on the $100,000 that I borrowed. I've got the opportunity cost on the actual payments, the $700 a month payment. And I've got the opportunity cost on the interest that I'm paying. What is the total cost to borrow the money? TCO stands for total cost of ownership. What's the total cost to borrow $100,000? The exact same. It's the exact same. It's the exact same cost to borrow the money as it is to pay cash when it comes to the effect on our retirement. Does that make sense? The negative effect on our retirement is the same if we pay cash or if we borrow the money. Now, what if we're only talking about 5 years or 10 years? Doesn't matter. What if we're talking about 30 years? Doesn't matter. How about 50 years? It doesn't matter. But what if, okay, what if we could borrow the money at a lower interest rate than what we could earn on our savings? Let's go back over here to our 20-year mark, okay? What if we could borrow the money for a lower interest rate on our than on our savings? Okay. Now, this is where we start to see this positive gain. But it gets a little more interesting here. I want to go over something else, okay? I want to go back. Let's just say that they're the same. Let me go back to this same. Let's just say that my loan and my compounding interest is the same, okay? Now, what if I didn't have to make a loan payment? What if I didn't have to make a loan payment? Well, let's go like this. There we go. Why is it still the same? If I didn't have to make if I didn't have to make a loan payment, then I don't have the opportunity cost on the loan payment, right? I don't have the opportunity cost on the loan payment, do I? But what happens to my interest? My interest isn't going down. My interest is going up. So my opportunity cost is going up. My loan, if I don't make a loan payment, my loan is compounding. Does that make sense? My loan is compounding. But what if my loan is compounding at a lower interest rate than what my money is compounding? Interesting, isn't it? Interesting, isn't it? Now, if I didn't have to make a loan payment, what could I do with that money? Could I not put that towards my retirement? Could I not put that towards my savings? You're starting to see how we pay for college is so important. Okay. So important. There are three components that we need for the retirement scholarship strategy. We need uninterrupted compounding interest. I want you to think for a minute about all the money that you have saved for college, all the money that you have saved for college, or the money that you are going to pay out of your pocket. If you don't have any money saved for college, but you were going to pay some money out of your pocket, I want you to think of all that money. What if you could save that for the rest of your life? Uninterrupted compounding interest for the rest of your life. And what if you could borrow the money at a lower interest rate? Okay. What if you could borrow money at a lower interest rate and didn't have to make any payments? This is free money for high income families. Okay. This is free money in your retirement to offset that opportunity cost of helping your kids pay for college. It's like two cars going across the country. One's going 60 miles an hour, one's going 50 miles an hour. All right. By the time one leaves, by the time they both leave New York and they go to LA, we've got a massive difference between those two cars. Your money works the same way as these two cars. And most importantly, you are not in debt. Why are we not in debt? Because I can always take this money and pay off my loans anytime I want. Remember this article? Remember all these billionaires that aren't paying their fair share in taxes? Remember all these billionaires that know how to minimize their taxes because they understand financial strategies? Well, guess what? In this article, it says, how do they do this? Their wealth derives from the skyrocketing value of their assets. I call that uninterrupted compounding interest. Same thing. Jeff Bezos is just going to let his Amazon stock grow. Those gains are not defined by U.S. laws as taxable income unless and until the billionaires sell. So if you use loans to pay for college, it's not taxed. If you borrow money to pay for college, it's not taxed as income, right? So how do these mega billionaires pay their mega bills while opting for a dollar salary and hanging on to their stocks, for example? Well, according to this public document and experts, the answer for some is borrowing money. Now, does this just not fly in the face of everything that we've always been taught? We've always been taught to save and spend so that we don't pay interest. But do you understand that if you don't pay interest, you're going to be giving up interest by paying cash? If Jeff Bezos takes his Amazon stock and sells some of it so he can go buy himself an investment property, and he goes in, and let's say he's just going to go pay cash. Now think about this for a minute. I want you to think about this for a minute. Is Jeff Bezos going to pay cash for an investment property? Or is he going to borrow the money and take advantage of depreciation, whether it's bonus depreciation or whether it's long-term depreciation? Are these billionaires going to look for tax write-offs, or are they just going to pay cash for something? Now, again, I don't know Jeff Bezos personally, but according to this document, they're borrowing money. Okay. Now, again, there are three components that you need to make this happen. Three components. Can you do this with a 529 account? Can you keep your 529 account and allow your 529 account to keep growing and use it to borrow against it at a lower interest rate? No. Okay. How about the banks? Can you get a loan from a bank at a lower interest rate without a payment? No. Okay. How about a 401k? Can we allow our 401k to continue to grow and borrow money at a lower interest rate without payments? No. How about margin loans? Actually, yeah, a margin loan is where you borrow against your stocks. But whether or not you get a lower interest rate is debatable because it depends on what your stocks do. Your stocks could drop and then you have to pay back the loan, and it's a risky option, but you could do it, but they are going to require a payment. Okay. They are going to require a payment. Could I do this with real estate that we've been talking about? Could we allow our real estate to appreciate and grow in value at 6%? And could we take out a loan at 5%? And oh no, dang. Okay. We can't. Have you ever heard of a mortgage that you don't have to make a payment on? Actually, that's called a reverse mortgage. But we're not talking about reverse mortgages. And most of you are too young to qualify for a reverse mortgage. But if you are looking at this for your grandkids and you could take out a reverse mortgage, you could do this. Okay. But what about whole life insurance? Now, could you allow your whole life insurance to grow? Yes. However, the way whole life works is you're going to get around 4 to 5%. So it's really going to be more like this. Okay. And the loans in a whole life policy are going to be 6 to 8%. Okay. So that's going to grow like this, which creates a major problem. But you can just not make a loan payment until you die. Then when you die, the loan just gets taken out of the death benefit. If you've never heard of this concept before. Okay. Now, what about an IUL? An IUL actually invests the money in a stock market type index that can get a 6 to 8% return, but no losses, guaranteed to never lose. 6 to 8%, guaranteed to never lose, and guaranteed to be able to borrow the money at 5% from some of these companies. Some of these companies will loan you money at 5%, guaranteed, using your money as collateral. And you don't have to make a payment on these loans. And it'll just come out of the death benefit when you die. Okay. It'll just come out of the death benefit when you die. Does that make sense? Okay. So basically you take your policy cash value, or in other words, think of it like, if you're not familiar with permanent life insurance, think of it like a savings account tied to the insurance. It's like a savings account tied to the insurance. Okay. Now, this is the insurance company. You're going to borrow the money from the insurance company. So they're just going to use your money as collateral, and they're going to put a lien on that money, and they're going to give you an interest-only loan for anything you want. College, weddings. I've had 2 daughters married in the last 2 years, okay? College, weddings, cars, down payment on real estate, a down payment on real estate, okay? And then you do not have to make a payment on those loans. You do not have to make a payment on those loans, non-structured loan payments. You can, if you want to make a payment, you can, but you don't have to. Now, what about the high fees? My insurance or my financial advisor told me to stay away from life insurance because of all the high fees. Well, here's the secret. Okay. The secret of the wealthy, the billionaires, the banks, the large corporations use these insurance policies a little bit different. Tony Robbins talks about this in his book on Money Master the Game. It's a big old book where he talks about all these strategies that he learned from interviewing all these billionaires. And one of the strategies that he talks about is the secrets of the ultra wealthy that you can use too. And it's viewed as the insider secret for the affluent, a legal way to invest without paying taxes on the gains. Same with a 529, same with a Roth IRA, right? Right? Okay. But here's the deal. There's my clicker. There we go. It's not even the billionaires that are buying the most. It's the banks and the large corporations, from Wells Fargo to Walmart. Wells Fargo had 18 billion of its tier one capital in life insurance cash value. That was back in 2014. So it's a little bit dated, but you can see that these banks are putting their money where it's safe, but they could still earn a good rate of return and borrow against it tax free. You can go to bankdirector.com. This is a video called What is Bank-Owned Life Insurance? And this just talks about how banks use life insurance differently. Okay. It's got high cash value, low insurance. Okay. High cash value, low insurance. The cost is low compared to other insurance products. Now, here's the big secret. Low insurance. Okay. This is what you normally see. Okay. Little bit of savings, lots of insurance. That's not the way to do it. That's where all the fees and the commissions come from. Okay. This is where you get maximum cash value, minimum fees and commissions. Okay. Take a picture, take a screenshot. Remember that. That's key. Let's say that we invested $10,000 a year for this strategy, $10,000 a year for 10 years. That's $100,000. We've got two choices. Option A, which is what you're normally going to hear about, and what the billionaires, the banks, and the large corporations are doing. Okay. Over here on the left, we're looking at maximum insurance, maximum expenses, maximum commissions, minimum cash value. Okay. Look at the insurance compared to the one over here on the right, where we've got minimum insurance, minimum expenses, minimum commissions, and maximum cash value. So let's compare. We've got expenses on the left, expenses on the right. We've got interest on the left, interest on the right. You'll see this change here in just a minute. And then we've got our account value. Now watch these two scenarios as I scroll down. What are we doing over here? What are we doing over here? We're reducing the insurance, which reduces the expenses. What are we doing over here? We're not reducing the insurance, so it does not reduce our expenses. See the two? Okay. When we scroll all the way down, what do we see? Over here on the right, we see very little insurance. We see lots of money in our savings account. We see lots of interest that we've earned. And we see very little fees that we've paid. Versus over on the left, we see lots of fees, very little interest, and very little money left. But at least we have the insurance, I guess. Right? Now, by the way, there's also a death benefit, which is these two numbers together. If we add those two numbers together, that's your death benefit. If we add these two numbers together, that's your death benefit. Which one would you rather have? One on the left, one on the right. There's a right way and a wrong way to do this. Now, let's take a look at an example over here. Hang on just a sec here. Okay. Here's another little visual just to show you from a little graph on how the life insurance compares to all these other investments at 1% in fees. 1% in fees. The life insurance, believe it or not, is less than 1% in fees over time if you do it correctly. Now, that's just to give you some dollar numbers on this example. This is just one case study, not, just an example. Okay. But if you do it the wrong way, that's why everyone says, oh, don't use life insurance, right? Here's our savings. Okay. We are going to use our money as collateral. Just like your house is being used as collateral for your mortgage, your car is being used as collateral for your car loan. Okay. you're going to use your savings to secure the loan, and your money is going to continue to compound interest. All of your money is compounding interest, and the loan is also compounding interest. But if the loan is compounding at 5% and all of your money is compounding at 6%, even the amount of money that is being used as collateral, it's all growing. It's all growing. Imagine if you were to take out a home mortgage. Let's do this one over here. Okay. Let's do this one. Let's say that we have a house, and let's say that that house is appreciating at 6%, and we're using the house to borrow money at 5%. The entire house is still appreciating in value, even though there's a loan against it. Do you see how the loan is independent of the house? Let's change this right here to college loans. Okay, let's change this to college loans. Let's say, now this is going to be tricky. This is going to make you think. Let's say that my savings is earning 6% and my loan is at 5% that's using my savings as collateral. What's my positive gain between the two? What's my positive gain between those two? And if I don't pay this loan back, it's going to keep growing at 5, but my savings is going to keep growing at 6. If I don't make a loan payment, the two are going to keep growing, and it's going to be like 2 cars going across the country. Okay, 2 cars going across the country. One's going 60 miles an hour, one's going 50 miles an hour. If I don't pay those loans back, what's my positive gain between the two? It's 1%, but check this out. If it was like this, that would be like a true 1% spread, right? But what if I just initially take out a smaller loan and maybe I've got twice as much in there compounding? So I'm getting a 6% compound on this much money and a 5% compound on this much money. Does that make sense? So yes, you are correct. There's a 1% positive difference, but in addition to that, I've got 6% on a bigger number and 5% on a smaller number, if that makes sense. Okay. What if my college loans are 8%? What if I'm taking out a 5% loan to pay off my 8% loans? Does it still work? Does this still work? If I'm taking a 5% loan to pay off an 8% loan, even though this is costing me 8 and I'm only earning 6 over here? What do you think? Here's the most important thing to understand. The most important thing to understand is that if I am paying these loans off, my interest is going down. So it's the compounding of these two. It's the compounding that makes this work. Do you see how the actual interest that I'm being paid, or that I'm being charged, or that I'm paying, this far right-hand column? Do you see the far right-hand column? The loan interest. The loan interest is getting less every year. Even though it's an 8% interest rate, the loan interest is getting lower every year. Why? Why is the interest going down every year? Why is the interest going down? Because my balance is going down. That's the key. Okay. That's why this is so important. Does that make sense? You're also not in debt because you've always got enough money to pay this money back. If you have a senior in high school or a college student, or if you have even a high school student and you need to buy yourself a little bit of time, here's how it's going to look. You're going to start saving right now as fast as you can. You're going to start saving as soon as you can. You're going to use college loans to pay for the school next semester. I mean, we might only have a couple months. So we might only have a little bit saved. We might just be getting started. So we might have more loans initially. We might have more loans. While your kids are in school, you might be collecting these loans while the kids are in school, but you're going to try to save as much as you can while the kids are in school. But maybe you only have that much saved by the time the kids graduate. That's okay, because then we're going to take out these life insurance loans, and we're going to use these life insurance loans to start paying down these college loans after graduation. We're going to keep saving. We're going to keep taking life insurance loans. We're going to keep paying down these college loans. We're going to keep saving. We're going to keep taking life insurance loans. We're going to keep paying down these college loans. Awesome. Okay, so how can these insurance policies earn 6 to 8% without stock market losses? Because I know when I tell people, yeah, you can get a 6 to 8% return guaranteed to never lose. I know that sounds too good to be true. I know it sounds too good to be true. So I want to explain how. I want to explain how they do it. Okay. They're going to put most of your money into this portfolio that is made up mostly of bonds. On average, between the bonds, the stocks, the mortgages, the real estate, on average over time, this is going to earn around 5%. That is why they're willing to give you a loan at 5%, because they know that's about how much they can earn on their money. Does that make sense? Then what they're going to do is they're going to take as much of your $1,000, or whether it's $1 million, it doesn't matter. Okay. They're going to take as much of your money as they need to put into that bond portfolio that's getting around 5%, so that they give you your money back. That way they can guarantee you that you're not going to lose any money. They're going to guarantee you that you're not going to lose any money. Then they take the interest on the money and they put it into the stock market in what we call options trading. And they use an index. They buy options. They buy options on an index like the S&P 500, as an example. And what an option is it's kind of like buying a lottery ticket on the index, or like the S&P 500. It's like buying a lottery ticket for $50, let's say, and saying that you think that in 12 months from now, you think that S&P is going to be up. And if the S&P is up over that 12 months, your option might be worth double what you paid for it. It's like holding the winning lottery ticket. Okay. It's like turning $50 into $100, which is 100% return on your money, but it was only 5% of the money, right? So if we take our 1,000 plus the 100, that's how we're going to get an average of 10% on our money. Now, in a really good year, if the S&P does really well, then your $50 might be worth $200, giving you a 20% return. Is that possible? Yes. I know that some of you might go back and talk to your financial advisors, and your financial advisors are going to say, oh, no, there's no way life insurance can earn 20% returns. I've got dozens of clients that have earned over 20% returns on their policies. It's very, very doable, okay, on a good year. Now, on a bad year, when the S&P went down, okay, then your option isn't worth anything, but you've still got your $1,000. That's how it works. Okay. That's how they do it. Okay. Now, one of the options might look like this, where they're going to give you what we call a participation rate. That participation rate fluctuates. It's actually around 75% right now. Okay. So it kind of fluctuates. And the way that works is you're not going to get the full upside. You're going to get like 70 to 80%, let's say, of the upside. But there's no cap on some of these. There's no limit on the upside. So you could still get a 20% return in 2003 and in 2009. And in 2010, you could get a double-digit return. In 2012 and 13. Okay. During this particular time frame, you could have averaged 11%. It just depends. Now, every account is going to be different. Sometimes they do a cap. Sometimes they do it a little bit different. Sometimes they do a cap. Sometimes they do a participation. It just depends. But they have the ability to give you the upside of the market without any downside because of this options trading strategy. And I would say if you could get 70 to 80% of the upside with no downside, then that's pretty good, because even Warren Buffett says that his team has a hard time not getting, or has a hard time trying to beat the S&P. Okay. So what does that mean? If Warren Buffett's team has a hard time beating the S&P, then let's look at the S&P. I would say that means that the S&P is a good benchmark, right? Everybody seems to use the S&P as a benchmark. So let's look at these last several years. Let's start with 2000 and go through 2024. That's 25 years. 25 years in the last, 25 years. And we can see what happens when our money goes up and down. We can see what happens when our money goes up and down. In 2000 to 2002, we lost 46%. So our dollar dropped to 60 cents. Then we had a great year. But what happens when you get 26% return on 60 cents? You're not even out of the hole. In fact, it took until 2008 to get your money back, and then we lost it again in 2008. Okay, put a pause on this. Let me redo this. Okay, and if we fast forward, in 25 years, our dollar would finally be worth $4. Our dollar would finally be worth $4. Now, what if we could get a floor of 0? So we're guaranteed to never lose. And what if we could get 70%? We call this a limited return. We call it a limited return. But what happens is although we get a limited return, our money doesn't lose. So when the market goes down, our money doesn't lose. So we might only get an 18% return, limited. Okay. We might only get an 18% return instead of 26. But would you rather get an 18% on all of your money or 26% on 60 cents? You can see which one puts you further ahead. Now, if we fast forward and we look at this through that 25 years, we can see down here at the bottom that it's possible for this indexing strategy to give me a better actual return, than the S&P. Now, I am not trying to convince you that that's going to happen. I'm just trying to say that there's a very good chance that we could do better than 6%. And I've been showing you 6% returns. I've been showing you 6% returns. There's a very good chance you could get better than 6%. It's possible. Now, what happens if we started in 2009, right after the first big drop? Well, then the S&P is going to do a little bit better, but my average return is still really good. Even though the S&P is going to do better, because we didn't have a lot of drops. We didn't have a lot of drops in those 16 years. We really only had, 2022. So again, I'm not trying to beat the S&P. I'm trying to beat 5%, which is what I'm going to be charged on the loans. If I could get 7 or 8 on average and only pay 5 on the loans, even better. You also want to make sure that you are getting loans at a guaranteed 5% rate or as low as possible. So when you're looking at the fine print, you want to look for things that are like locked in when you purchase your policy and won't change. You want to look for things like that. You don't want variable loans, because variable loans could actually end up being 14%, let's say. That won't work. We got to have a fixed loan that won't go up. Okay. So just a quick recap: competitive rate of return. It doesn't negatively affect your EFC or your SAI number. All the money inside life insurance is sheltered from the SAI calculation. Low fees if set up correctly, tax-free growth, tax-free access to the money through the loans, and no stock market losses. Guaranteed loan approval, fixed 5% loans if you get the right plan, okay? High contribution limits, flexible contributions, and access to the money. That's what we call a maximum efficient contract, right? A maximum efficient contract can be used for more than college. You could pay back college loans, pay for weddings, pay for taxes, pay for retirement and other investments. You could buy a short-term rental property with the life insurance and reduce your taxes, right? Now, what do you do with your 529 accounts if you want to put the money into something like this life insurance? Well, you could pay for private school. Okay. You can put some of it towards student loan payments. You could roll over up to $35,000 into a Roth IRA, and you could pay the taxes and the penalties, and you can move the money over to the life insurance, for example. Now, if you combine all of these strategies and you get your income to zero, it's not going to hurt if you tap into your 529 account as much, because you're going to wipe out those penalties and taxes by wiping out your income. So if you combine all of this that we're showing you together, you're going to get the maximum benefit. But don't forget that if you choose to pay cash for college using your 529 account, if you choose to use your 529 account to pay for college so that you can avoid the fees and the penalties, or the taxes and the penalties, then don't forget that over the next 20 years, by paying $30,000 out of your 529 account for 1 year of college, that's going to cost you $100,000 in opportunity cost. That's going to cost you $100,000 in opportunity cost. Okay, so let's go ahead and walk through this really quick. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to walk through this together. If you don't have this link, we'll post this in the chat. This is the calculator.collegecostsecrets.com. You can also text your support rep and say, hey, what's that calculator link? They'll shoot you a text if you're watching this on your phone or whatever the case may be, okay? All right, I'm going to do 2 students. Super simple case study here. Simple case study. I'm going to do 2 students. I'm going to do 5% inflation. I'm going to do a senior in high school. And I'm going to do a basic state school. I'm going to do a basic state school of $30,000 a year. Basic state school, $30,000 a year. Okay. I'm going to do a junior or sophomore. Let's go sophomore. Let's go 2 years behind. Okay. I'm going to do a sophomore in high school, also 4 years of college, also local state school. Okay. Keeping it simple, keeping it simple. 2 kids, 2 years apart in school. Okay. 30,000 a year. With inflation, we're looking at 135,000 for my oldest, my senior in high school. We're looking at 135,000. We're looking at 149,000 for my software because of inflation. We're looking at a total of $285,454 is my cost of attendance. Okay, that's right here. 200, make sure I got that right. Yep. Okay. 200. That's my first cost. 285,454. If you're doing this along with me, write the number down. Okay. If you're doing this with me, write the number down. This is your first cost. Yours is different. Maybe you have 5 kids like I do. Maybe you have 1. Maybe you have 10, like Jerry on the call here. Okay. Whatever your situation is, put down your cost of attendance. Okay. Questions so far? I'm going to go through this and we're going to put a nice little bow on this. So please stop me if you have any questions. Just ask the questions in the chat. I'm keeping my eye on it. Okay. Now, moving on. What is my next cost? Okay. My next cost is my financing cost. My financing cost. I am going to go over here and I am going to just say, hey, right now, the Parent Plus loans are 9%. So I'm just going to go based on what we have going on right now. Although the new loan rates are going to be announced in like June or July, okay, for this next year. But right now, I'm just going to say that my rates are 9%. Okay, worst case scenario. I'm going worst case scenario here. This is, well, it's not even worst case scenario. It's today. This is today. This is Parent Plus loans right now today at 9%. The default is 10 years. The default is 10 years to pay these loans back. 10 years to pay these loans back. Could I spread them out over 20 years or 30 years? Yes. Okay, you can spread them out longer, but I'm just going to stick to the default for this case study. Feel free to change yours up however much you want. If I click on next, that is $537,000. $537,000. This is my present position, my current scenario before I met Lance on the internet and before I joined my free college challenge workshop, right? So my price to finance my 2 kids is $537,000. So if I move over here, boom, there is, let's go back over here. Hold on. Right there, $537,000. That's my cost to finance. So my out-of-pocket cost is $285. The cost to take out loans is $537. Okay. Now, what's the final cost? What's the third cost? The third cost is the opportunity cost, right? So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say that I'm just earning a modest 6% return on my retirement. I'm just going to be conservative. I'm going to be conservative and I'm going to say that I'm going to get an average of 6% over time on my retirement. Now, the reason why I'm using 21 is because my calculator has a 0 year for a freshman in college. It kind of messes my numbers up a little bit. And so if I want to see what my opportunity cost is in year 20, I have to put 21 because of this 0 current year right here. So just a little glitch in the calculator. You just kind of have to play around with that a little bit. Okay. Now, I am not, for this particular scenario, we talked about whether you pay cash for college or whether you borrow the money for college. It is the same. So remember this. Remember this. Okay. If I pay $100,000 for college, and I lose the 6% interest on that money over the next 20 years, okay, that's going to cost me $331,000 in my retirement. The opportunity cost of paying cash for college is going to cost me $331,000 in 20 years from now out of my retirement. If I borrow the same $100,000 between the interest, the opportunity cost on the interest, my loan payments, and the opportunity cost on my loan payments, the cost to borrow the money is the exact same if I borrow the money at 6% and I could have earned 6%. The cost to borrow the money is the same as if I were to pay cash. So that being said, the only difference is, what if I have more money compounding interest and I take out a loan at a lower rate? There's also another thing that we didn't really talk about yet, but watch this when I say, okay, what if I only borrow $25,000 at a time and I keep my money compounding interest and I have my money earning, or maybe I'm borrowing money from the life insurance we talked about before, right? And I borrow a smaller amount at a time, and I want this one to compound more. Okay, this one's more up here. Okay, so there's two things to consider. There's the amount of money that is earning 6% and the amount of money that you're borrowing at 5%. Please let me know if this makes sense, because I haven't talked about this yet. When it comes to compounding interest, it's the amount of money that's earning interest and the amount of money that you're borrowing. That's also something to consider. So when I'm looking at my opportunity cost, okay, you can see that my opportunity cost to borrow the money, if all things are equal, and it doesn't matter if we borrow versus pay cash, then let's borrow so that secret number 3, the retirement scholarship strategy, will work better. Okay. So the cost to borrow is $1 million. And I'm just going to go with this scenario because I'm going with the higher number here. Because if I paid cash, it would hurt my retirement less. Would you agree? If I pay in this example, not everybody's example, because if somebody thinks they're getting an 8% return on their retirement, then it actually still costs a little bit less. But what if I could borrow the money at 7? Okay. What if I could borrow the money at 7% for my loans? What if I could borrow the money at 7%? And what if I could get 8% on my retirement? Let me say that again. I'm borrowing the money at 7. I'm getting 8 on my retirement. Now, all of a sudden, it actually costs me just a little bit more to pay cash, even though it takes less out of my pocket than my loans. The end result is about the same. The end result is about the same. Now, I want to go back here. Oops. I want to go back here to my case study. We're just going to keep this simple for a minute. Okay, we're going to stick to the same numbers here. I'm going to stick to my 9. I'm going to stick to my 9. And I'm going to say that my retirement is only earning 6%. So I'm going to go with the worst of these two scenarios. I'm going to go with the million instead of the 789. I'm going to look at the worst scenario for this case study. I'm going to show you worst case scenario. I'm going to show you $1 million. So if I come over here, my opportunity cost is $1 million. Now I have my 3 costs. I have my 3 costs. Does everyone have their 3 costs? Give me a thumbs up if you've got your 3 costs. Or if you haven't had time to go in and play with the calculator yet. Okay? If you've done your homework and you've been playing around with this calculator, do you have your 3 costs written down? Rosemary, yes. Anyone else? Anyone else get their costs written down or played with their 3 costs? If you haven't done it yet, get in and play around with it. Okay, this is a hands-on workshop. Okay, this is a hands-on. We're actually trying to get real results. Okay, real results by the time we're done here. Okay, Michelle says not accurate yet, still playing around with it. That's cool. This is a free tool. It's a free tool, so play around with it. Massage your numbers a little bit. Play around with it. But do you see how I'm looking at a worst case scenario right now? I'm looking at 9% interest rates. I'm looking at the current rates. That's the current Parent Plus loan rate. Okay. I'm looking at a pretty basic 2 kids going to a state school. I mean, do you see are we on the same page as to these numbers? Like, are you following me? Give me a thumbs up if you're following me. I guess can't even spit out my words. Thumbs up if you're following me. Okay. We'll play with the calculator after watching all the videos and we'll work with, get back to you. Perfect. All right. Awesome. Hey, like I said, you can kind of go back and forth. You can watch these videos. You can play around with this calculator. Sometimes for a lot of people, if you're like me, you like to watch a video, you like to pause it. Then you want to go play around with the calculator and come back and unpause. You can totally do that. Okay. But Amy, hey, welcome neighbor. Hey, Amy. Yes, got it. Amy says, Alicia, thumbs up. Lisa, thumbs up. Okay, we're good. Okay. Now, all right. Okay, have numbers, but need to refine based on husband's income. Okay, perfect. All right, okay. Now, what is my savings? The first thing we need to do is we need to shave off secret number 1. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to go over to my college cost secret software. And in this software, you're going to come in and you're going to enter your information about your household. How many people are in your household? How many people are going to college? Okay. You're going to go over the information about each of the parents, whether they're married, what your income is. Now, notice that I have 0 income on all of these. Okay. So let's go ahead and play around with this. Because remember, I showed you how to have a 0 income, pay 0 in taxes. We've talked about that. But I'm just going to go in here. I'm just going to put in $100,000 for my income. Okay, boom, just a really quick one. And I'm going to say that I have under my, let's see here. I'm going to go under, that's Ariane. Where's my other one? Okay, that's, I got to change it to Lance. And I'm going to say that Lance has 50,000. Okay. And then boom, I could change that. Just really quick. I'm going to come over here now. With a little bit of income, I've got about $150,000 of income. And let's just say that Lance has $50,000 in a brokerage account. Boom. Okay. And voila. I click on my SAI number and doesn't look good, does it? Doesn't look good, does it? Okay. All right. Now, I click on my colleges and I look at my favorites, let's say, And sure enough, the only school that I'm going to get a little free money is at a top tier Ivy League type school. No free money from the state school, no free money from the out of state schools. My income is too high. My assets are too high. Okay. Now, because we learned what we learned in secret number 1. Oh, and by the way, check this out. I can click on the academic report. I can see some information about this school. I can learn a little bit about each of these schools. I can also come in here and I can look at a financial report and I can see what percentage of my free money is this school going to give me. Is there a preliminary practice FAFSA form? Hey, Rosemary, that's exactly what this software is. This is a preliminary practice FAFSA. This is where you enter all your information and it's going to calculate your financial aid eligibility. It's like filling out the FAFSA. This is like a dry run. This is like a FAFSA dry run. Okay. And that's why you can do this when you've got a 5th grader, or even if you have a freshman in college and you just want to know what kind of money you should have gotten. You know what I'm saying? I want to go back to my examples that we were using earlier. We were talking about UT Austin. We were talking about University of Oklahoma and Princeton. These were our case studies. Now, this is giving me $10,000 or $17,000 in free money, making my out of pocket for the local state school only $10,000. So I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to say, you know what? Maybe because of what I've learned in this free challenge, maybe I can do some things to move the needle a little bit, but not all the way. So instead of paying 10 grand, maybe I have to pay 20 grand. Okay. Maybe I have to pay 20 grand. Okay. So do you see where I'm coming? This is a case study where I'm lowering the cost of college by $10,000 a year, not by 17. Okay. I'm not looking at an Ivy League school over here where I only have to pay $5,000 out of pocket. I'm not looking at $5,000 out of pocket. I'm looking at $20,000 a year. This is very doable. I'm trying to be very realistic. This is very doable. Okay. So I've got 2 kids going to school now at $20,000 a year each. With inflation, I'm now looking at $190,000. Let's come over here. Boom. I went from 285 before to 190,000. That's $95,000 in savings. And we're just getting started. But put it in the chat. What does this do? This is the first domino, right? This is the first domino. What does this do to the rest of the costs? We've got financing costs and we've got opportunity costs. What does this do? Put it in the chat. What happens when I reduce my out-of-pocket cost of college? What happens? What happens to the amount that I need to borrow? You're with me? Okay. It's lower. You're right. Thanks, Wendy. Right? It's lower. Okay. So now let's go look at this 537 and see how we can get this. Hold on. Let me go back here to boom right there. Let's see how we can get that to 313. Let me go over here. I'm going to come over here and at 9%, I'm still pretty high, but you know what? What did we learn? What did we learn? We learned in secret number 2 how worst case scenario, I've got a private loan database where you can be, it's like a co-op. And worst case scenario, let's just throw out the government loan programs for a minute. Let's just say that we don't want to put our faith in the government. I think you should roll the dice. And I think you should at least take out the government loans initially, because we can always refinance to private loans. Now, let me just say that again, because I know this government loan forgiveness thing is very controversial and it changes every single day. Okay. I know I told you, Lisa is our certified student loan planner. She comes on every Tuesday and gives us an update on our group coaching call. Okay. But Although I think it's very possible that the government will do something in the next year or two that could significantly benefit you, I'm going to go with, let's say, a worst case scenario. We are at least able to refinance our loans at 7%. Refinance our loans at 7% for the lesser amount that I'm now borrowing. Now, what's my total financing cost? Do you see how we're starting to layer? We're starting to layer. We're starting to stack benefits. We're starting to stack the benefits of Secret 1 and Secret 2. Now my financing cost is $313,000. That's a $224,000 total savings so far. If we're looking at the financing cost, $224,000 in total savings. Are you with me so far? I'm trying to make sure this is nice and kind of, I'm trying to put a nice little bow on this and make sure you can see the step by step that I'm doing here. What I've done, let's go back over here and review this. Okay. What I've done is I've learned how to shave off $10,000 a year off the cost of college by lowering my SAI number. I've shaved off $10,000 a year off the cost of college, which reduced the out-of-pocket retail price, right? Reduced the amount that I have to give to the school. It reduced the amount of money I have to give to the school. And if I borrow that money, if I take out the loans to pay for college, and I can find a way to get a 7% interest rate instead of 9%, which is only a 2% difference. I think 7% is a very reasonable average return, especially if you refinance. You can refinance your college loans in the private sector every time interest rates drop a minute. If interest rates drop 0.5%, refinance your private loans. But I would stay in the government loan, federal loan program for at least the next year or two and see what happens. So are you with me on the 7%? I'm just using a number that I think is conservative. I'm still at 10 years. But because I've lowered my out-of-pocket cost and I found a better loan, I'm now looking at a financing cost of $313,000. That was, a savings of $224,000 from before. Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. I'm looking for emoji. Thumbs up. Okay. All right. Wendy says, what lender will refinance a 9% for a 7% loan? There are private loans right now based on credit, based on your income. I mean, heck, you could even do a home equity loan and get a 7% rate. Okay. Denise says, yes, thank you. Michelle's got thumbs up. Thumbs up. Okay. Perfect. All right. We're with me so far. Now it's when we're getting it. Okay. Now it's getting a little crazy here. We're going to talk about this $1 million opportunity cost. Now, by lowering the amount of money I have to pay for college, by lowering the amount of money that I have to pay back in loans, what is that going to do to my opportunity cost? What is that going to do to my opportunity cost? Let's take a look. I'm only paying $313,000 in loan payments now. Now, let me pause for a minute. What do we need to do if we can't afford to pay these loan payments of $313,000? What do we need to do? This is important. We can't move on until we understand this. What do we need to do if we can't afford these $31,000 a year loan payments? What are some options? Throw it in the chat. What are some options that we can do if we can't afford $31,000 a year in loan payments? What can we do? Throw it in the chat. What do you think? Hey, I want to make sure you understand this really quick. What could we do if we just can't afford these loan payments? Just let me know what you think. Throw it in the chat. Okay. Take out a loan, financing. Okay, this is the loan. We did take out the loan. If we can't afford the cost of attendance out of our pocket, we're going to have to take out a loan. So that's what this is. So we're already taking out a loan. These are loan payments. What do we do if we can't afford these loan payments? Borrow against your life insurance annuity. You could, but we still have to put this money into the life insurance. The life insurance doesn't help with the amount of money that we have to pay. Remember, the life insurance is a better way to get the money back. We still have to put this money into the life insurance. So what do we do if we can't afford this? Okay. Prasad says free funds, bank robbery. Hey, you could also get your kids married and then your EFC is zero, your SAI is zero. I mean, we can go extreme. If you want to go extreme, we can go extreme, right? Like get those kids married young and now they don't look at your income or your assets anymore, okay? That's a strategy we haven't talked about. All right, what else? Michelle says short-term rental investing now. Hey, I like it. I like it. Good. I like how you're thinking. Denise says try to negotiate with the lender. You could. Okay. Okay. Kyler says cheaper schools. I mean, is this the reality? The reality is maybe you have to look for a different school. Maybe you have to do community college for a couple years. What else? Oh, Rosemary, I love it. Get your kids to help. Your kids might have to pay for some of it. You're helping them to get a good education, aren't you? If you can't afford this, what other option do you have? My wife is the oldest of 6 kids. All 6 kids had to pay for all of their college. I'm not saying you shouldn't help your kids, but if you can't, I need you to go back here. I need you to go back here to the very beginning. And I need you to change this number to what you can afford. I need you to go back and change it to what you can afford. And then you've just got to tell the kids, I can help you with about 10 grand a year. That's about all I can do to help you is about 10 grand a year worth of college. So if you go to a school that's 20 grand or 30 grand a year, you got to do the difference. Now, I'll help you with the loans, but you've got to pay back those loans. Okay? Prasada, you can go back and lower that SAI number even more, can't you? Maybe you need to lower that SAI number even more. All right. I like it. Prasada, you need to get more aid. Lisa says, find a less expensive school. This is the reality. Okay. Okay. Emancipation. Right. Okay. There's a lot of things that we might have to go back, but I want you to go back to step 2 in your calculator. Pause the video if you're watching this as a replay. I want you to go back to step 2. I want you to change your numbers. And then I want you to click on next until you can afford this. I need you to be able to afford this or we can't move on. You got to go adjust the numbers. Now, some of you are staring at over $1 million right now. Some of you are looking at this and it's over $1 million still. Okay. But make sure you can afford it. And some of you can. Some of you can. But adjust the numbers until you can afford this. I can't emphasize this enough. The life insurance does not solve this problem. It helps you to get this money back. It helps you get this money back, but you still have to put your money into the life insurance so that we can borrow from it. Are you with me? Okay. Now, I'm going to leave this at 6%. I'm not going to change that because I haven't taught you how to get a better rate of return on your retirement yet. That's for another day. All right. Inside of our private coaching, we got lots of trainings on that kind of stuff, but I'm going with a conservative 6% right now, a conservative 6%. And I'm looking at my retirement in 20 years. What's my new opportunity cost number? What's my new opportunity cost number? 585. Okay. Now let's go over here and let's take a look at that. Okay. Now, have I even talked about life insurance yet? Have I even talked about the retirement scholarship strategy yet, where we can get all this money back? I haven't talked about that yet, have I? All we've done is lower the amount of money that we've paid for college and found better loans. That's all we've done. And we've already saved $418,000 out of our retirement opportunity cost, right? We've basically saved $418,000 in our retirement. Are you with me on this? Because I don't want to move on until you're with me. Now, could you take out loans and get loan forgiveness and maybe not have to pay anything for college? Yes. Could you get your SAI number to 0 and get some scholarship money and pay 0 for college? Yes, it is possible to pay 0 for college. But I'm trying to show you what it would look like if you had to pay $20,000 a year for college and you still had to borrow that money. But what I'm showing you right now is the savings from reducing the out-of-pocket cost of college because you implemented some tax strategies to lower your income, you repositioned your assets, and you found a lower interest rate loan. That's what we've done so far. Okay. Now, I still have this opportunity cost, don't I? I still have $585,000 that I'm not going to have in my retirement because I'm going to help my kids pay for college. Do you understand? Put it in the chat. Give me a thumbs up or say yes if you understand. If you can't find the emoji, say yes in the chat if you would like to get this $585,000 back. Could you benefit from another $585,000 in 20 years from now? Because I'm looking at 20 years. Do you see where I'm getting 20 years from? I'm looking at 20 years down the road. By helping my kids pay for college, I'm going to be out over $500,000 in my retirement. I'm going to be missing out on $500,000 in my retirement. Could you benefit from $585,000 in your retirement in 20 years from now? If I could magically help you pay for your kids' college and get that $585,000 back, and everybody wants that $500,000 back, right? Everyone wants that $500,000 back. I want to go back for a minute. Tell me, I don't want to lose you. I'm going to go back to my loans. Give me a thumbs up if you understand how I came up with this $313,000 in loan payments. Please just give me, I don't want to move on before you give me a thumbs up that says you understand how I get this $313,000 right here. These are my loan payments for 2 kids. Loan payments for 2 kids. I've got student 1, then I've got some overlap. Then I've got student 2. Okay, that's $313,000. I know that I need to borrow $313,000 from my life insurance. $313,000 from my life insurance to pay back college. Does that make sense? I need to take out a loan. Of $313,000, not a loan, several loans. Okay. I need to take out several loans. I need to take out $14,900 for a couple years. Then I need to take out $31,000. Okay, for several years, and then $16,000. I need to borrow $313,000 over 12 years, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, over 12 years, for 12 years, I need to take out $313,000. Does that make sense? I need to borrow $313,000 from the insurance company at a guaranteed 5% interest rate. That's the loan payments. Okay. These are the loan payments. This isn't the cost of college. This is the loan payment to pay back the loans that we borrowed to pay for college. Does that make sense? We're good? Okay. So we borrowed the money to pay for college. Now we're paying back these loan payments. We're going to give ourselves a little bit of time. We're going to give ourselves a little bit of time to save the money. Oh, by the way, really quick, where are those $313,000 of loan payments going? They're going over here. They're going over here to pay back my private loans, my federal loans, wherever it is that I borrowed the money first. I'm not taking out loans from the life insurance to pay for college. I'm taking out loans from the life insurance to pay back the college loans 6 months after graduation. Again, give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. I'm taking out loans from the life insurance company at 5% to pay back whatever loans I used to pay for college. And in this example, it was 7%. Okay. I took out loans at 7% and I'm going to pay those 7% loans back with 5% loans. Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. And please ask a question if it doesn't. Okay. Okay, makes sense. Do you recommend that kiddos take the Stafford loans? Yes. Jenna, I do recommend, because the kids have to take the Stafford loans before you can take the Parent Plus loans anyway. So yeah, you have to take the Stafford loans first. Okay. Rosemary, I finally get it. Woohoo! Yes, I love to hear that. We're getting closer to that 10. We got to get closer to that 10 out of our college funding understanding. Okay, now, how much do I need to put into the life insurance to be able to borrow $313,000? Please don't misunderstand me. We are not taking out a loan against some sort of life insurance. We're taking a loan against our cash value. Okay. We're taking a loan against our cash value, not the death benefit. I can't just go pay $50 a month for a $500,000 death benefit or a $350,000 death benefit. Does that make sense? I'm not taking out a life insurance policy to borrow against the death benefit. I'm borrowing against the cash value. Just forget it's not even life insurance for a minute. Just think about it as an insurance company savings account. Sometimes I can confuse people with that. Does that make sense? I mean, I would love it if I could just go pay $50 a month for a $350,000 policy and make this work. That's not how this works. Does that make sense? I don't want to lose anybody on that one because I've done that before. Okay. All right. We good? We good? We good? Okay. All right. All right. Perfect. Okay. Now, how much do I need to put into the life insurance? Well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to look at a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, and I'm going to look at a 15-year plan. Okay. 5 years is the fastest. We talked about that on day 1. Actually, we really dove into that on day 2. On day 2, we talked about why 5 years is the fastest. There's a 10-year plan and a 15-year plan. Why did I say a 15-year plan? Because I really have like 16 years is all. And I like round numbers. My OCD gets to me. So I just wanted a 15-year plan, not a 16-year plan. That's just me. Okay. You could do a 16-year plan. Okay. But does it do you any good to do a 17-year plan? No. I mean, unless you're using it for retirement. You could totally use it for retirement, obviously. But my college is going to be done after 16 years. All right. Does that make sense? Okay. Tying all this together here. Okay. Now. Okay. Okay. Now. Here we go. Ready? Here is, let's go right here. Okay, here's the first one. Here's the first one. Does everyone know where I came up with this column right here? Who can tell me how I came up with this column right here? How did I come up with that column right there? What happens if you have most of your money already in non-retirement mutual funds? Do you have to liquidate it and pay capital gains tax to move it into real estate or life insurance? Yes, but guess what? You're going to save more money in taxes over the next several years than you'll pay for college. If you move money out of a taxable brokerage account and put it into something that will grow tax-free the rest of your life, then you are in good shape, because guess what? You're going to save more money in taxes than you'll pay for college. My biggest client put in $735,000 a year. They moved their money out of taxable accounts. They moved it over 735,000 a year. Now they are retiring on 250,000 a year in loans, income tax free. Okay. So yeah, I mean that you're in a good spot there. Okay, now, but I can't move on. I can't move on until somebody puts it in the chat. Where did I get these loans from? Where did I get 313,000 from? Where did this come from? How did I come up with this column? Okay, total loans that you need. Yes, this came from my calculator. That came from my calculator. Are your numbers going to be different? Yes, your numbers are going to be different. Everybody's going to have different numbers. Okay, but does everyone, again, give me a thumbs up if you know where we came up with these loans, if that makes sense. If you know where we came up with these loans, give me a thumbs up. Okay. Or just say yes. All right. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Now, in order to have enough money to borrow that, in order to have enough money to borrow 313,000, it's estimated that I save about 57,000 a year over 5 years at 6% interest. And of course, we talked about the 6% interest yesterday. We talked about that 6% interest yesterday. Okay. So Jenna says, I'm not sure, just the cost of attendance. So this was from the cost of attendance, but then the loans. So it wasn't just the cost of attendance, it was the loan. So if I go back here, this is my cost of attendance. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yes. You're right, Jenna. Plus interest. Okay. So it's my cost of attendance plus 7% interest over a 10-year loan period is going to give me my loan payments of $313,000. Okay. Okay. Jenna, does that make sense? Okay. All right. Now going back over here, there's 57,000 a year for 5 years. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Now that's 57,000 a year for 5 years. That's 287,000 to pay $313,000 in loans. You with me? $287,000 invested to pay $313,000 in loans. Remember, the fees are going to be really high in the beginning, and then they're going to go really low, less than like 1%, less than 0.5% over time. Look at this. When I have $1 million, I'm paying 0.1% in fees. 0.1% in fees when I have $1 million. It's very inexpensive over time. It's less than 1% over time. The fees are just heavy in the beginning. But if heaven forbid something happens to me, okay, then I still have a death benefit to protect my family so my kids can still go to college, right? Okay. Now, if I'm taking out these loans at 5% interest and I'm not paying them back until I die, then when I come down here and I look at my 20-year mark, I've got $125,000, $125,245 left that I could subtract from my opportunity cost. But I want to look at a 10-year plan really quick. Here's my 10-year plan. $30,000 a year for 10 years. $30,000 a year for 10 years allows me to borrow $313,000 for 10 years. And because I am earning an average of 6% on my money, and I'm borrowing money at 5%, then I'm going to have $132,000 available in 10 years. Which is kind of confusing, I know, but I'm basically getting less insurance. One of the reasons why the 10-year looks a little different is because I'm getting less insurance. Okay. All right. Now, is that $132,000 free money? Yes or no? Is that $132,000 free money that I wouldn't have had if I just paid these loans out of my pocket? If I just paid those loan payments out of my pocket, how much would I have left? Zero. If I use this strategy, I've got $132,000 in free money. Jenna says yes. Anyone else see that? Do you see where this is coming from? Do you see how we're getting this? Okay. Denise says yes. Now, if I want to scroll down here, is this free money? Yes. Is this free money? Yes. But I'm looking at 20 years. I'm just looking at 20 years. But do you see, the longer we go, we've got this spread. Now, here's extra credit. Here's extra credit for someone that that understands this. But when we talked about this over here, what did I say? It's not just about a 6% on my savings versus a 5%. What's the other big factor in this? What's the big factor in this? Okay, do you see the difference between the amount of money I have saved and the amount of money that I'm borrowing? So look at this. When I come down here in 20 years and I look at this in 20 years, okay, I have a loan balance of $528,000 at 5%, but I have a account balance of $660,000 at 6%. Does that make sense? Yes or no? Does that make sense? Yes, Michelle, uninterrupted compounding interest. Okay, so yes, let's combine Michelle and Amy's comments together. Uninterrupted compounding interest. That's the key. But we're also compounding interest on a bigger number. We're compounding interest on a bigger number than we're being charged on our loans. So now we've got $132,000. Now, what if I can't afford $30,000? What if I can't afford $30,000 a year? It goes back to lowering the cost of college, having your kids help out, choosing different schools, okay? Or what else could I do? What else could I do? I could spread it out a little bit longer. I could spread it out a little bit longer. I could do a 15-year plan. And it's a little bit more because I'm saving over 15 years, but I have to pay back all my loans over 12. So I'm going to have to come up with a little bit more money out of pocket. But what's the other thing I could do? I could come over here, and could I not do this? Yes or no? Could I not change these to 15-year plans and 15-year loans? Can I not spread these out over 15-year loans and give myself even longer? Could I not spread this out over 20 years if I wanted to, so that I could afford it? But some of you might not want to pay for 20 years. You might not want to put in, money for 20 years. You might want to just help your kids over the next 5 to 10, 15 years and be done. But do you see how I can adjust my loans and I could adjust my time frame there, right? That I'm putting the money in. So everybody here gets one of these free reports. Everybody gets a free report. But you've got to work with one of my customer service reps to double check your calculator before we run the numbers for you. It doesn't do us any good to come back to you and say, hey, we ran a report for you and here you go. If you put in $57,000 a year, it'll work great. And you say, I can't afford $57,000 a year. So we've got to talk about this. We've got to figure out what numbers work for you. What numbers works for you? You've got to go back to your calculator and adjust the numbers until they work. Wendy says, is the total expense a per year payment we make to the insurance? Hey, Wendy, thank you for asking that. No, the expense comes out of your account. That's why you can see that you start out in the hole. You start out in the hole because your expenses are higher than the interest. So the expenses comes out of that $22,000. It's not extra. You don't have to pay that as an extra. Good question. Okay. Now, let's go over here, and I'm just going to stick to this 10-year plan as our example. in our 10-year plan, how much money do I have in 20 years from now? How much money do I have in 20 years from now? 132,249. Check this out. In 20 years, I would have $132,000 back. Now, what did I say earlier? I asked you if you wanted your $500,000 back, or what was it? 400 and something or 585,000. Yeah. I asked you if you wanted that $585,000 back, this money, right? Okay. That was the opportunity cost, was it not? In 20 years from now, if we didn't use the retirement scholarship strategy using this life insurance, in 20 years from now, I would be missing $585,000 from my retirement. And now I just got $132,000 of that back. Does that make sense? Do you see where I came up with that number? Now, I haven't gotten you the full $585,000 back, but are we happy? Are we, give me, say yes if you're happy with, hey, 132,000 is better than nothing, right? Okay, better than nothing. I mean, it's $132,000 you wouldn't have had before you joined us, right? However, I'm not done yet. Here's where it gets fun. Okay, here's where it gets fun. Who can remember what the 4% rule is? If I had money in the market saving for my retirement and I was earning a 10% return on that money, and then it came time for me to retire and I had my money, how much money did I have? What was that number? Help me out here. What was that number? 500 and hold on. Let me go back. Hold on. What was the number? 500. 585. Hold on. 585. Let me write this down. 585, 730, right? 585, 730. That's the money that I'm not going to have. 585, 730, right? That's how much money I'm not going to have in 20 years from now in my retirement. If I would have had $585,000 in a Roth IRA, I probably wouldn't be as risky during retirement. I'd probably be happy moving my money into some bonds and getting a 5% return. I've got to pay 1% on that money to my financial advisor so they can go golf every day. All right. Because I mean, really, do you need a financial advisor to buy bonds? Let's be honest, right? Okay. But that is the 4% rule. That's how we get the 4% rule. Okay. That's where I come up with the 4% rule. So what is the number? What is my retirement? I earn a little money, I spend it. I earn a little money, I spend it. I'm living on the interest is what I'm doing. I'm living on the interest. Okay. So what is that number? Okay. So I've already discussed that I'm missing $585,000 in a Roth IRA. And I just wish I could get that money back. Okay. That's what it's going to cost me to pay for my kids' college. What does that cost me in annual income? So we know that I'm losing $585,000, but what am I going to lose in annual income? Down here in year 20 or after 20 years, starting in year 21, I could have had it started in year 20, but my OCD was getting the best of me and I wanted my little total numbers. These yellow lines are just total lines. It totals up the numbers every 10 years. And so I wanted to start in year 21 just because my OCD was getting the best of me in there. Okay, so now here's where I was going wrong just a second ago. So check this out. 19,000 is, okay, now you saw this number over here. We talked about 132,000. 132,000 is how much I have available. But how much do I have still earning interest? Am I earning interest on 132,000? Am I earning interest on 132,000? Or am I earning interest on another number? Okay. Am I earning interest on another number? Okay, so this is another key point. Another key point. Am I earning interest on 132,000 or am I earning interest on something else? What's the other number? What am I earning interest on? I'm earning interest on the account value. I'm earning interest on the account value. This is extremely important to understand because that allows me to borrow money to live on in retirement, just like I borrowed money to pay back college. Just like I borrowed money to pay back college. Now, if I borrow money at 19,000 a year, my loan is going to keep growing, but so is my compounding interest. How many of you, based on the 4% rule, were saving money for retirement, and now you're going to spend it in retirement, just like I've been teaching you about paying for college? Paying for retirement is no different. Paying for retirement is no different than paying for college. If we could borrow the money to pay for if we could borrow the money to pay for retirement, isn't that the same as borrowing the money to pay for college? And couldn't we allow the money to continue to compound the rest of our lives? And yes, it's true. The loan is going to continue to grow as well. The loan continues to grow, but so does our money. Now here's the question that I was going to ask you a minute ago that I had in my head. How much money would I have to have, and we're going to leave this up to EJ and Michelle for this answer. How much money would I have to have in a Roth IRA? Why am I saying Roth IRA? Why am I saying Roth IRA? How much money would I have to have in a Roth IRA to pay me $19,000 tax-free? Thank you, Wendy. Okay. Tax-free in retirement. How much money would I have to have in a Roth IRA to pay me $19,000 a year in retirement? Let me make sure I've got this right. 457 divided by 0.04. What's the number? Anyone know? We're waiting for EJ and Michelle. Okay. What's the number that I would need? How much would I need based on the 4% rule? How much would I need? Oh, Victor, we got another engineer in the house, another mathematician. All right, Victor, 486,000. Oh, Michelle, 11 million. No, not 11 million. Not 11 million. Okay. In order to get 19,000 a year, based on the 4% rule, take 19,000, divide it. That's what I was doing wrong a minute ago. Divide it by 0.04. Tell me, yep, Ling, yep, you got it, Ling, thank you, 486. Anybody else get the same number? Make sure everybody's on the same page here. You got to double check my math here. Okay. Now, I know that you only have $132,000 available if you wanted to just take it out and go buy yourself a boat, right? I know that you have $132,000 available, but do you understand that we have this phantom $486,000 in a Roth IRA? Or let me rephrase that. We have the equivalent of $486,000 in a Roth IRA from an income standpoint. Because remember, The opportunity cost that I was losing was the $585,000. So going back over here, okay, we now have $486,000 of the $585,000 that I was missing out on. Pretty close, right? Not too shabby. Our challenge was to try to get it all back. I'd say we came pretty dang close. We're just shy by about $100,000. Now, what could we do to improve this? Let's pump in more money so that we use this for our retirement. Because if you are sticking to the 4% rule for your retirement, if you have IRAs, Roth IRAs, if you have brokerage accounts, and you're planning on saving that money and spending that money in retirement, this will blow that away. Let's go pump in a bunch of extra money. Why put in $30,000 a year? Let's add another $20,000 that you were maxing out in your retirement income. Let's put $50,000 a year into there. That will significantly increase your retirement income and more than make up for the cost of college. It'll put you further ahead than paying for college because of what you've learned over the last 3 days. And that is the secret right there. Now, if you want your report, it's completely free. Go to freecollegechallenge.com/report. If you want your numbers, if you want to look at your numbers, go to freecollegechallenge.com/report. It'll ask you to fill out a little survey so we can assign you to one of our customer service reps. They will get in, verify your numbers in your calculator, make sure the calculator numbers are correct, grab your information, and get you a report so that you can see your numbers. Okay, these are just examples, but they will give you your numbers. You need all of these numbers for you. I want all of you to have these numbers. I want all of you to have these numbers. I want to know how much you're saving. Because that is the challenge, is to see how much you can save. That's the challenge.